This video will serve as an introduction to cell biology for this course. This video will cover three principal ideas: the cell theory, the differences and similarities between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, and finally we will end with a look at the theory of endosymbiosis. The cell theory is broken up into three parts. The first part is that all living organisms are composed of one or more cells. And what this means is that organisms can either be unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular organisms are made of one cell, multicellular organisms are made of two or more cells. What's nice is that all unicellular organisms, since they're only composed of one cell, can be broken up into just a couple of different categories. All bacteria, for example, will be unicellular organisms. And only a few of the eukaryotes that we'll see and learn about a little bit more in a bit are going to be unicellular. So yeast, for example, are unicellular fungi. Multicellular organisms are much more common, although not actually as abundant. All plants, animals, and fungi are going to be classified as multicellular. So what's most important to take away from this is that all living things are made of cells. Now similarly, the cell is going to be the basic unit of organization for all living things. What this means is that if you're a living thing, you're made of cells. The image on the right that you can see is actually representative of cork that comes from the bark of a tree. Robert Hooke was one of the first individuals to visualize this cork and actually was the individual that coined the term cell. Because when he looked at this structure under the microscope, he saw these little rooms or cells, think prison cell, and thus the term cell was born. But again, what's most important to note is that these cells are the basic organization of all living things. Finally, in order for new cells to come to be, there has to have been a pre-existing cell. So all living things come from other living things. All cells come from pre-existing cells. That is the cell theory, or the three parts of the cell theory. The next idea that we want to address as part of this video is the difference between the different types of cells that exist on planet Earth. And these two different types of cells are prokaryotic and eukaryotic. And we'll look at the differences between the two types of cells in a moment. This picture is just showing you some of the general differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And what you're going to see first off is that all of these, or both types of these cells, have a cell membrane. But what makes prokaryotes different from eukaryotes is that eukaryotes are going to have different internal compartments. These internal compartments are referred to as organelles, more on that in other videos. And one of the largest organelles, if not the largest organelle in a eukaryote, is going to be the nucleus. So one of the key differences that you can see on the screen right now is that prokaryotes lack a nucleus, but eukaryotes possess a nucleus. So a little bit more on prokaryotes, or prokaryotic cells. All bacteria on planet Earth are prokaryotic. And as you saw in the previous slide, all prokaryotes lack a nucleus, and they also lack organelles. What is an organelle? An organelle is simply a membrane-bound structure on the inside of the cell. The nucleus is an example of an organelle. There are others. Perhaps you're familiar with the mitochondrion or the chloroplast. Those are also examples of organelles. Regardless, prokaryotes lack them. All prokaryotes, though, do have a couple of structures in common. They all have a circular DNA molecule located somewhere within the cell membrane. And all prokaryotes have both a cell membrane and a cell wall. This might be surprising to you because you may have learned that only plant cells have a cell wall. This isn't really true. Bacteria and actually fungi have both a cell membrane and a cell wall. Some bacteria can move and thus have a flagellum. You can see this whip-like tail on one end of the cell. That's the flagellum. And what this flagellum will do in bacteria is actually rotate like a propeller, moving the cell through whatever environment it happens to live in. Prokaryotes are believed to be the first type of cell to exist on planet Earth. Those cells appeared approximately 3.5 billion years ago. And as we move through this unit, we'll look at some of the factors that would have given rise to the first cells, which were all prokaryotic in nature. But we'll get there as we move through the unit together. So in contrast, eukaryotes, as you can see in this picture, are more complex than prokaryotes. First, they have a nucleus and organelles. Remember, organelles are simply those membrane-bound compartments located on the inside of the cell. Eukaryotes can be unicellular or multicellular, while again, all prokaryotes are unicellular. Um, and most organisms, plants and animals alike, are indeed multicellular eukaryotes. One of the key differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes, besides the presence of organelles, though, is that if you looked at the DNA, if you looked at the chromosomes that are found within a eukaryote, you'd find that they are linear in nature rather than the circular chromosomes that are found in prokaryotic cells. So if there are these two different types of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, where did eukaryotes come from? Remember, prokaryotes are hypothesized to be the first type of cell to exist on planet Earth, which means eukaryotes came later. So where did the eukaryotes come from? Well, there's a theory that's been proposed. It was proposed in 1970 by a scientist named Lynn Margulis. And what Lynn Margulis proposed is that eukaryotes actually emerged from prokaryotes that merged together to form eukaryotic cells. So in the picture, what you're looking at is some type of cell that merged with another type of cell that was prokaryotic in nature. So a prokaryotic cell merged with another prokaryotic cell, and this second prokaryotic cell was now living within the first prokaryotic cell, the larger prokaryotic cell, the host cell. And what formed at this point was a structure known as an endosymbiont. So the prefix endo meaning inside or within, and symbiont meaning that these two cells were now existing or living within a symbiotic relationship. Both of these cells were benefiting from whatever interaction existed between them. So one of the interactions that might have existed as you move from left to right is that this early cell that was engulfed, this early prokaryote, may have served a function similar to that of a mitochondrion, where this mitochondrion-like organelle was producing energy, and that over the course of time, as this eukaryotic cell emerged, as it diverged from this ancestral endosymbiont, that all of the cells that diverged from that host cell also had mitochondria. So if the mitochondrion was providing a source of energy for this host cell, what might the host cell be providing for the mitochondrion? Because again, this is a symbiotic relationship where both cells are receiving some sort of benefit from this interaction. Well, simply put, the smaller endosymbiont, that's playing the role of the mitochondria in this image, may simply have received protection from the larger cell, allowing it to survive or to be more likely to survive in whatever environment it happened to live in. So that sort of interaction can be used to explain both the origin of the mitochondria and the chloroplast, but where do the other organelles that are found in eukaryotes come from? Well, one of the hypotheses that's been proposed is that within your ancestral prokaryote, you had your circular DNA molecules, and that over the course of time, because we know the membrane is a flexible structure, that parts of the membrane from this ancient prokaryote began to bleb or move inward. And as they moved inward, they may have actually formed structures like the nucleus, so a membrane-bound structure that surrounded the DNA that was located somewhere on the inside of the cell, along with other structures that we'll learn more about in other videos, like the endoplasmic reticulum or even the Golgi apparatus. So the take-home message when you look at a picture like this is that through change in the structure of the external cell membrane, it may have been possible for some of the other organelles, some of the other internal membrane-bound compartments to have arisen from a single ancient prokaryotic cell. So at this point, what I'm going to ask you to do is to watch an animation that further summarizes some of the evidence in support of the theory of endosymbiosis. The link to this animation is on the website, and after you watch the animation, there will be a couple of questions that I'd like you to consider as part of this Edpuzzle video. So that's it.